Nobutaka.
Huh? Scarletta. Hey, it's good to see you. What's my favorite editor-in-chief been up to?
Oh, keep him busy. Hey, did you happen to see my band perform our comedy special a while back?
Oh, you mean at the Empyreum?
Yeah.
I did. I didn't know you were so talented.
Oh, thanks. Well, it actually got me thinking. Have you invited the owner of the Imperium to come by yet?
Huh? You mean Duo? Huh. No, I guess I haven't. I always figured he was busy. The Imperium's been a pretty popular place lately, though now that you mention it, having him come by to promote the theater would be nice.
See, that's the spirit. The Imperium could sell carbuncle coffee at the concession stand before performances.
That's true. That would be a really nice marketing. Hmm. All right. Well, I guess I can send him a message and see if he wants to come by. Thanks, Scarletta.
No problem. By the way, I'll take a nice chai.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said chai. All my equipment's broken.
Wait, what?
Ah, good day, dear friend. Before you order anything, you may have noticed things are rather quiet in here. Almost no one here, no sound of coffee being made, and that's because everything's broken. Some of the devices I use to make the coffee aren't quite as young as when I first got them, so I'm afraid coffee and carbuncles is a bit more like warm tea and carbuncles today. But I promise I have some fine quality tea to share with you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. A nice double strength chai. Now, lack of coffee aside, I'm sure you're wondering if I have anyone dropping by today, and I am happy to report that at least that part of the cafe experience hasn't changed. I don't know if you've ever been, but there is a beautiful theater located in the Lavender Beds, known as the Empyreum of Arts, run by a wonderful guy named Duo. It's a full performing arts center that hosts everything from plays to bards to comedians to poets. Now, I don't know how invested you are in fine arts, but I certainly think that speaking with Duo will help entice you to drop by his establishment. He should be here any moment now. Hey, Duo. Welcome to Coffee and Carbuncles.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
How are you doing today, man?
Oh, a little nervous about the interview, but other than that, I'm feeling great.
Oh, I'm sure it'll go great. I'm not worried at all. You would be very surprised. Like, everyone tends to say they're nervous, but then starting to talk about your passion projects and Final Fantasy XIV really helps people relax pretty quick. So I think you'll be okay. But getting into the interview, where are you joining us from today?
I live in Northwest Indiana, about an hour outside of Chicago, Illinois.
So you're in the United States.
Yep.
I've been to Chicago actually, for Distant Worlds, funny enough.
Oh,
So it
I
was
actually went to Chicago to see that too.
oh nice.
Yeah, it was such an awesome concert.
It's kind of wild because removed from that concert, at the further time goes on, the more people I talk to are like, "Yeah, I was totally there for that concert." And it's weird to think that at the time we didn't know each other, but we were in the audience together.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that really makes you think and just go, "Huh." So, today we're here to talk about the Imperium of Arts, which is your very, very cool venue, and I can't wait to hear you talk all about it. But before then, I like to get to know my guests on a personal level, get to know them kind of outside of 14 and what led them to the topic of conversation. And so before we start that, what are you drinking while you're here with me today? Because I have to ask all my guests. This is Coffee and Carbuncles.
Um, I'm not drinking anything special, just cherry lime flavored water. I'm kind of boring like that.
Actually, that sounds pretty good. I wish I had gotten that. I I had lunch and had coffee earlier, a nice caramel latte. So right now I'm just drinking water, but it's not flavored. I wish I had added a little bit of lime, but that's a side note. Um, it is all good. So back on the topic of getting to know you as a person. You already said you're from Indiana, but tell me about your background a bit. Like, what do you do for hobbies, and what type of things do you enjoy outside of Final Fantasy XIV?
Um, well, for hobbies, I have an Etsy store that I run out of my garage. I sell custom mugs, keychains, and coasters, and a few other things, and I kind of consider that a hobby. Other than that, just more video games, board games, and card games, and I love the Marvel movies. I'm a big Marvel nerd for that.
What card games do you play?
Oh, nothing like deck building. It's more like um Uno, and my grandma loved this game called Skippo, and just card games like that.
Oh, okay. I thought that with the new Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy collaboration, it might be something like that.
Yeah, I would love to get into those kind of games, but I don't personally know anybody that plays them, so I don't really have anyone to learn off of.
That's fair. We talked yesterday about my unfortunately failed attempt to go to a Magic the Gathering tournament last night.
That's such a bummer.
Yeah. It it was really awkward. My friend and I went to a Magic the Gathering tournament yesterday evening, and unfortunately we had arrived about 3 to 5 minutes late, and we said sorry and asked to join, and they were like, "Well, you're late, so no." And that was kind of a drag. But I did manage to get some very nice art cards of Heidelin and Golbez, actually. So that was neat.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy IV fan, but I mean, cool art's cool art, and I'll take it. Plus, Golbez was an Endwalker, so
Yeah,
close enough. Getting both him and Heidelin and together, I was like, okay, so very Endwalker themed at the moment.
sure. But I agree, like about the artist. Cool art is cool art. I would if it wasn't so expensive, I would probably get the cards just for the artwork. But I used to do that with Yu-Gi-Oh cards actually, but I never got into playing the game.
I actually did the same thing with the official Final Fantasy trading card game. I have like 2 or 3 decks based on Final Fantasy games I really enjoy. But truth be told, I think I've only played it maybe once or twice. Unfortunately, it's not very popular in my area. So I've really had pretty limited chances to try it out.
Yeah.
Now, you're known for running the Empyreum of Arts, which, like I said, we'll talk about later. But it makes me curious, have art and theater always been a large part of your life pre 14, or is it a relatively new interest for you?
Well, it's relatively new as far as theater, but I like to do a little bit of acting like here and there, just little things when I can. And I think that role playing in 14 is kind of like that, like with story building and just having to come up with lines basically on the spot to further a story and make it interesting. But other than that, I would say that the arts in general have always been a big thing in my family. Most of my family members on my dad's side are musicians and singers, and a few of us can draw exceptionally well. And I have an aunt on my mom's side that is a published author of a children's book. So, yeah, I guess you would say that stuff's always kind of been important in my family.
let's talk about that for a second, because that's interesting that you say that you view roleplay in 14 to be akin to acting, because usually when I'm talking about role playing or I hear others talk about role playing, they're talking about it in the sense of being akin to creative writing. But you make a good point that when it comes to role play, it's not just creative writing. You then do have to act out what you've written. And that can mean timing of when you say stuff, putting emphasis on certain parts of it, but also, much like theater acting, using emotes.
Yeah, and that's one thing about the theater with my performers too that I always appreciate is, I'm not a big emo person. Like I'm not very good at using them, but it blows me away how they can think of just any emote to go with like a song or something. But yeah, acting and role playing I think are a bit the same. You really have to commit to it.
You definitely do. And as weird as this might sound, I think you've blown my mind just a little bit, because I've I've never thought of comparing role play to acting before. And I'm sure some people are listening to this going, well, obviously, but that's interesting. I'm going to have to give that some thought.
Okay, well, I'm glad I could bring that to your mind.
I appreciate it. I mean, the more I think about it, because it, as weird as this is going to sound, when I'm doing stuff in character in 14, I consider that role play. But when I see theater troops performing, even though I should consider that role play, because obviously, if you're performing a play, I mean, you are role playing in that moment. But I guess I've always kind of mentally separated role play from theater performance. And I guess it's always just been kind of like bards doing songs to me, where I'm just mentally going, well, that's performance. That's a different category. But ultimately, I guess it's not.
Yeah, I would consider it a little bit differently, but, just because you have most of the time you have to kind of think on your feet of what you want to say. But if you're really into it, like an actor is with a performance, everything is just fluid. Like the lines don't feel like somebody reading lines. It just feels like these people having a conversation, and whatever's happening is really happening.
Yeah, I agree. Huh. Okay. Well, as much as I would love to spend like the next 10 minutes sitting here going, huh, and contemplating this, and believe me, I could. um, we may talk about this a bit more in part two of the interview, but for now, let's get back on the subject of Final Fantasy. How did you come to the Final Fantasy franchise? Like, how did you discover it?
My first Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy VII. I think that's probably a lot of people that was their first Final Fantasy, but the story and the characters really got me hooked into the game. And at first, I would just watch my brother play it whenever he played it because I was just mainly into the story and not really want it looked too difficult for me to play. Um, but then he stopped letting me know when he was going to play it, so I had to pick it up myself. um, and it wasn't just my first time playing a Final Fantasy game, but it was also my first RPG in general that I played. So that's why a lot of the stuff of it, when I watched him play, looked kind of daunting. But I had a lot of fun when I eventually picked it up myself, and it made me appreciate the game more.
So, have you been playing the remakes or the mobile game then?
I haven't been playing the mobile game, but I have been playing the remakes.
And how are you feeling about those?
I think they're great. I think they're doing a great job with them. There's interesting stuff that wasn't in the original game, and it's really got my attention. So I think those things are going to help me want to keep going when they make the rest of the remake.
Do you have any particular character from Final Fantasy VII that you really like?
Uh, hmm. I guess it would just be Tifa. I think she's a really strong female character, and um, not just physically strong, but you know what I mean. And she really sticks by Cloud and helps him. And I just think that's like a great friendship that they have.
I definitely know what you mean. I like her a lot as a character because she's she isn't just there to be like a generic love interest or a generic friend character. She really does have a strong presence throughout the story and is able to stand on her own without Cloud, character wise. I mean, you see a lot of video games where if you remove the main character, it feels like all the other characters centered upon them would just kind of crumble. But I do enjoy how full of a character Tifa is.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Narrative wise, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Have you played any of the other games besides 14, obviously?
I played 8, and then I played 10, and then I played 11. Um, did I play 12? No, I did not play 12, but I played 13.
And then what ultimately brought you to Final Fantasy XIV?
Well, like I said, I played 11, and that was my first MMO. And it was just crazy me seeing all the players on my screen, and like the thought that I could interact with them while I'm playing a video game and stuff was really cool. And then, so when 14 came out with the better graphics and everything, I had to get on that.
And what was it like for you starting out in 14?
Um, I knew I wanted to be a DPS, uh, because I have really bad anxiety, so I didn't want the responsibility of like a tank or healer role. But, it,
So relatable. So relatable.
um, but, well, it just felt really immersive, and, I would spend hours progressing through the different quests, but I didn't really get into RPing until years later. Actually, I didn't think I'd be good at it, so I avoided it for a long time. But now I see like most of the community doesn't really expect everyone to be great RPers, and they like kind of adjust to your level.
That's very true. I think that it's one of those situations where, oddly enough, even though it's an MMO RPG and RP is clearly in there, for a lot of people, roleplay still feels very niche. And so there's a lot of wanting to expand and grow that community. I know for me, it's part of why I enjoy talking about roleplay in this podcast so much, but also because, like I said, I very much view roleplay as akin to creative writing. And if someone's just starting out in either roleplay, creative writing, what have you, if they try something and your first response to them being new is, wow, this is horrible and you should never do it again, one, you're a terrible person, quite frankly, but also you're not helping your own community expand.
Yes, that's true.
Whereas if people are starting out and you are patient with them, you meet them on their level and you're like, hey, here's a few suggestions, but you're not trying to force someone who is struggling to write 2 sentences to write like 3 paragraphs,
Yeah, so true.
then I definitely think that you then are helping better your community and expand it. And that's where I feel with a lot of the role players I've spoken with, a lot of that patience with new role players comes from because you have to be. We've all been there.
Right.
I mean, I don't think anyone started out being able to write 4 paragraphs of Final Fantasy XIV role play. And so I would say that the roleplay community, for the most part, I mean, you have people who are exceptions, obviously, but for the most part, it is very welcoming. Now, You have an interesting name in 14 and a last name that, unfortunately, since I'm not good with Italian, I can't pronounce very well. But I would love if you could pronounce it and then tell me how you came up with the name.
Okay, I'll do my best to pronounce it the way that I've heard it read back to me, but it's Freccia. And the way I came up with that was, like I said, I wanted to be a DPS, but I also knew that I wanted to be a bard and an archer. So I just thought it would be interesting to have the word arrow in my name, but I didn't want to just say arrow. So I looked up different languages to see, what kind of looked the coolest. And I thought Italian looked really cool with the word arrow. And then Duo is from an anime character that I really liked. So that was pretty simple for me.
Would that anime happen to be Gundam Wing?
Yes, it would.
I am a very big Gundam fan, so I recognized it right away. I was like, I bet.
Yeah. I do get asked that by people who are fans of the show. So,
It's wonderful. I mean, it's always good seeing other Gundam fans. It it legitimately brings a smile to my face. So between the first and last name, I fully support it.
thank you.
Though I do have to ask, you said you picked the last name because you knew you wanted to be a bard. Tell me the story behind that. Like, how did you go into 14 going, okay, I know I want bard?
Well, in 11, I played Monk, and that got kind of boring. And I liked Bard because it was more than just shooting arrows. You could be like a support with the different songs and stuff. And that's what I wanted. Like, I wanted to have more of a role in a party other than just doing damage. Like, I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to, back in 11, you had to pull enemies from monsters into the party, and I wanted to be useful, other than just doing damage.
You said earlier that your family had a background with things like performance and music. Do you feel that that ties into your enjoyment of bard?
Yeah, probably, especially with the performance mode because I am in a bard band. Um, so it definitely did have an influence on it. Yeah.
Now, obviously we've spoken about role play, and I do want to ask more about that, but I feel that that would be a very good thing to open up part 2 of the interview with asking. So, I think that we're going to go ahead and we're going to call part 1 done, and then in part 2 of the interview, I want to ask a lot more about role play, but obviously I want to ask all about the Empyreum of Arts.
Okay, sounds good.
So we'll go ahead and we'll have our break here. And then we will be back shortly for part 2 of my interview with Duo, all about the Empyreum of Arts. See you then. Welcome back, everyone, to the second half of my interview with Duo. Hey, Duo.
Hey.
To start off, in part one, you said that you roleplay in 14 and you view theater as roleplay, and we had a discussion about that. So I want to ask, what is your roleplay background in 14? Like, how did you get into roleplay?
I guess it was about a year ago, maybe, that I first started getting into it. Well, no, it'd be more than that. But anyway, I just started going to venues, and people would try to RP with me, like just normal things. Like I go to a lounge or a tavern, and the waiter or waitress would come up to me, and I would just have to think on my feet, like, okay, what do I want to order? How say this? I don't want to sound stupid. And then afterwards, they try to have a little conversation with me. And I enjoyed it. It felt like an escape from reality, kind of, that I could just do that and have a conversation with somebody and not have anything to do with going on in the world or anything like that. It was just me and that person just having fun.
That is one of the nice things about roleplay is you can really just be in that moment. But how then did you get from visiting a venue and role-playing at a venue you were visiting to creating the Empyreum of Arts?
Well, when I was wanting to open a venue to try to make more friends, and I had a couple of my friends trying to help me with getting one started, but I didn't want another club or bathhouse or lounge. I wanted something different. Then I had the idea for performing arts theater, and I'm really not even sure how that popped into my head, but I was like, you know what, that'd be pretty cool, and it'd be something really different. And this was even before I knew what kind of performances people could do in the game, like macro dancing and just acting out scenes from a play and things like that with emotes and weapon skills and all that kind of stuff. Um, some people did think it was weird because it wouldn't bring in revenue for me, but I didn't care about revenue. That's not why I was trying to open one up. I just wanted, like I said, I was trying to make friends, and I feel like the theater doesn't involve a lot of RPing for players that are just coming to watch, so that would make it a little bit easier for some. And once I started going out looking for different acts, I was blown away by what was out there. And that's really what cemented the idea for me that it would be awesome to give these people a stage to perform on.
I've often said that it's really hard to understand the depth of the 14 community, especially when it comes to how creative people are. I remember back in season 2, I believe it was, I said that trying to understand the 14 community very much feels like wading into a beach connected to a very large ocean. Like, even doing this podcast, I still feel like after 3 seasons, I'm only scratching the surface of just how creative the community can be and all the different ways that people can express themselves through the game as a medium.
Yeah, it really is amazing, and there's so much stuff. My my mom likes to message me every once in a while just to see how I'm doing, and I told her, well, I'm getting interviewed for a podcast this weekend, and she was like, "Oh, what's it about?" And I was like, "I have no idea how to explain this to you." So I just I just didn't. It was like, it's about something I do in a video.
Well, if you're listening to this, hello, Duo's mom. I'm Nobu. Pleasure to meet you, and I hope you're doing well.
Yeah,
I do hope she listens to this.
yeah, I'm sure she will.
Awesome. Well, ma'am, I hope you're doing well. So, back on the topic, though, of the Empyreum of Arts. Now, for those that have never been, the Empyreum is not just you walk in or you go to the basement and there's a stage. The Empyreum is a full-on performing arts center experience. I mean, there is concession areas selling food and drink. You have downstairs, you do have that theater with all the seating. But even then, there are also smaller areas for, like I said, food and drink, but also an area for open mic nights. That is amazing.
Thank you. I'm really proud of it. And my friend Suzu did a wonderful job of building the theater for me. She's done a lot of the stage designs as well. We had to get rid of the smaller stage for open mic nights so that we would have more furniture space for set designs. But it didn't matter because the first time we did an open mic, there were so many people that showed up that we moved it downstairs anyway.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. What was open mic night like? What type of performances did people bring to that?
It was mainly bards. I did have somebody come up who was a storyteller, and that was really cool. They told a story that they just made up and narrated and stuff, and they actually used the minions as characters in their story, and so they would bring up different minions and stuff. But yeah, different bards, and then I think we had a poetry reader.
About how long did it end up lasting?
Um, Probably just 2 hours. It started to die down around 9 o'clock my time, and so we just went ahead and called it. But everybody still had a great time, and I met some future performers that way. Like the storyteller, I've brought him back a couple of times for different themed shows.
That is so cool. I mean, I love that you've created this space for people to express themselves and they are taking full advantage of it. And I feel like that definitely shows that you are actively contributing to the community.
Thank you.
Now, the basement of the Empyreum of Arts is a theater. I mean, there's the stage, you have all of the seating, but like you just discussed, it's not only plays that are performed. You've had band performances, you've had storytellers, comedians. Could you talk about the performances that have gone on there and have any in particular really stuck out to you?
I mean, I could talk forever about that. The different shows that we've had always um go beyond what my expectations for them. And we try to have different themes for the shows to kind of bring all those different acts together in a way. So like our first show didn't have a theme because I didn't think of that. But after that, our first theme show was Alice in Wonderland. And it was just so cool because I had this variety of acts, but it was still a cohesive thing. And there's so many different versions of that story that the different performers actually, like, one acted out the story of it from the novel, and then another group acted it out from like the Disney movie, and then another group just kind of put their own spin on it. So it was very unique but still cohesive, and every single story was still its own thing. And we've done, let's see, Alice in Wonderland. We did a Pirate Night, which was probably my biggest hit. That was when we had the largest crowd. And we've done different holidays, of course. The last Starlight one that we did was a really big hit. They're just, uh, I don't know. I can't even explain it. It just blows my mind when they actually get out there and perform. Like, how did they come up with this stuff? How did they think to use emotes and weapon skills in that way? Because if I tell somebody like macro dancing, they're just going to think that people are doing the different dances or something, and it's so much more than that. And, yeah, I just really love having the theater, and I love being able to see these shows and put on these shows for people to enjoy.
So would it be fair to say that while these performances are happening, you're not just like, "Oh, hey, they're using my space," or you're not just like hanging out backstage. You're actively in the audience enjoying it with the rest of the others looking at the performance.
Yeah, sometimes I do have to stay backstage because what I like to do is come out and after each performance, I come out and I introduce the next act. And then I say, I'll say a little something and then that act will come out. And for the comedy one, I actually made different stages for the different performances because there wasn't a theme. So every performance that came out, they had their own stage design. And so I had to stay behind the scenes for that too.
That is something that I wanted to touch on. Now, obviously, you own the venue. What happens when you have things like theater performances? Do you give part ownership temporarily to someone from that theater troupe so that they can rearrange the stage? Or are they sending you like set design images beforehand?
Sometimes all of that has happened. It depends on the show, really. I've actually never had to give permission to somebody. Usually they just tell me or they have sent a picture, and during rehearsals and things, so be like, "Hey, it would be really nice if we had this on stage for our performance," and things like that. And so I do my best to accommodate for them.
So when it comes to things like theater performances, you're actively part of the rehearsal with the theater troupes.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Okay. Okay. I was really curious, especially during a performance we'll talk about later, but I was just kind of curious with you being the venue owner how things like stage setup worked, but that sounds really neat.
Yeah, like I said earlier, my friend Suzu, who designed the theater for me, she's done a lot of the stage designs as well. And she's talked to the different performers herself to get ideas for what they need and what they want on the stage and what it should look like and things like that. She does a wonderful job. The Pirates one, I asked her to make it feel like we were inside of a boat, and she knocked that out of the park. Um, So I try to be involved when she's not available, and I had to do all the ones for the comedy one, but it was hard to have enough furniture pieces for each different stage design because I had maybe 7 performances that night, so I had to make sure I had plenty of furniture space for each performer, and that was a little difficult.
Yeah, I imagine so. It occurs to me I haven't actually asked, how old is the Imperium of Arts? When did you open your doors?
It was a little over a year. Um, I can't remember the exact date, but it was a little over a year ago. But we haven't done like that many shows because I try to do one show a month. And when Dawn Trail came out, we took like 3 or 4 months off to just allow the performers to enjoy that DLC.
That's reasonable. I know that usually when expansions come out, a lot of venues go on hiatus. And I mean, that's just not only so that the venue owners themselves can dive into the new story, but because when you're owning a venue, if you try and have customers, a lot of them are off adventuring at the time. So it does need some time to sort of settle down.
Hmm. Yeah, and this uh, other venues running too is another hard difficulty with trying to make your venue stand out.
Tell me what it was like after the first performance at the Imperium of Arts ended. Where were you at kind of mentally, emotionally, like knowing that this was the start of your venue?
Well, I had a sense of joy about it for sure. And it really felt successful just because the people that were there, the audience that showed up, really seemed to enjoy it. We started off in a medium house in the basement of a medium that was belonged to a friend, and he just let me do whatever I needed to do inside the house. He didn't care. And performers I had were also very supportive as well. They told me how much they enjoyed not only performing, but seeing the other performances as well that night. So it was a big deal to me. It really felt successful. And I thought, this could actually work. And I didn't need to have like revenue coming into it. I just asked people to make donations.
That's twice now that you've said that you don't do it for the revenue, but it's more of a community thing. So I'm curious, and I want to ask a kind of loaded question, but bear with me. I want to talk about the purpose of your venue. You have this venue, and your stated goal is to have one performance a month minimum. And I've seen the website, and people are able to pretty freely get on your Discord, message you, and ask about setting up performances, and also message you about bouncing around ideas for, hey, this is sort of a concept of a performance, but we want to figure out a way to make it work. And then you add in things like your open mic nights, and it seems very clear to me that your venue is about the community. It's structured in such a way that it allows people from all over the community to come and be able to perform. And I guess I want to ask, what is your goal with this? What does community mean to you? And what does it mean to you to have this space that you can make available free of charge for others to kind of allow these interactions among the player base?
That is a tough one. It's a little hard to talk about, but I don't have like a lot of friends outside of the game. The ones I do have are amazing, but it's hard for me to make friends in real life because of my anxiety and depression. So the community means a lot to me. Most of it, there are some players that are different, but most of it is very welcoming, and venues are really welcoming, and they just want you to come in and have a good time. Um, like I said earlier, I've always been one to enjoy escaping the real world, and the community really helps with that. Like in the game, I'm Duo. I don't have anxiety and depression. I get to forget about reality for a while and just be somebody else. And so I guess I really want to give something back, something positive, something that brings the community together in some way where they can enjoy something together. And my performances, my performers, they mean like the world to me because I couldn't do this without them being willing to come back to the theater over and over and put on these shows. Uh, they're the life and blood of the theater. So it's not just for the audience, but it's for them as well. Um, the most recent performance that we're going to have on the 28th really wasn't even my idea. It was this group of performers. They said, we really love The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby, and we really want to perform it on your stage. So they gave me a picture of what they wanted the set design to look like, and I was really happy and honored that I could provide this opportunity for them and not just for the audience.
That is so moving to me, genuinely. Something I've spoken about quite a bit during the first season of the podcast is I started this podcast for the exact same reason. I mean, things like depression, things like anxiety, they're horrible. I mean, just point blank, they are horrible to have. And 14, through its immersion, through its community, really does allow room to grow kind of past your depression and anxiety, and room to really display yourself in a way with very minimal judgment.
Yeah.
And so I sympathize so much, and I agree that when you're someone who feels like they don't really belong that well, say outside of the game, being part of the 14 community makes you feel like there has to be a way to give back.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. And that's part of why I want the performances to be so great, and they always are. Like, I've never pointed in them, but I just want to continue that sense of community where it's welcoming, and we just welcome you no matter what, and you can just come in and be who you are.
Duo, that's awesome. I mean, genuinely, that is very wonderful of you. And I hope that the Empyreum of Arts keeps doing everything you guys are doing, because I did want to talk about, well, actually, I want to compose myself a minute. That was a very loaded question, and the answer was pretty emotional, and I appreciate that. Thank you for being willing to be so open and vulnerable about that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I did want to talk about a specific performance you guys had at the Imperium, which is back in March. You had a Women of the Arts event in which female performers got to show up and show off their talents. And it was, in my opinion, what put the Imperium on the radar for several people, including myself. I know that my friend Scarletta Vendetta, she was part of it, and you had a lot of people show up for it. And I feel like it really left an impact on the 14 community to have that space and have that time for female members of the community to really express their interests and their talents. So to see an evening focus on lifting up talented women in the community, I want to ask, what was the story behind that event? How did all that come together?
Well, I thought it would be really nice to give female performers a chance to showcase not just their talents, but kind of give their stories if they wanted to. Um, a lot of women gamers, they have to deal with some creepy stuff behind the scenes, and I just wanted them to give them a platform where they could be themselves and it'd be like a safe space and say what they want to say. Um, I won't say names, but I know one of the performers that I had that night has been through some really hard things in their life that no one should have to go through. And it was great seeing them talk about it a little bit through their performance that night.
You sound like you're getting a bit choked up, man. You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah,
It,
it's
it just meant a lot to me that I could do that for them.
I'm really glad. And I think that that is something beautiful that comes with theater, and it allows people to do a lot of self-expression, and unfortunately not all of that self-expression comes from joy. I mean, there's a lot of things that people go through in their lives, but theater can be a place to really spread your wings and uplift people.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to tell any kind of a story. And like I said, it's a safe place too. Nobody in the crowd's going to judge you. The people that do come to my audience, they're there for the right reasons. Um, just to enjoy a show and be supportive of the different performers, whatever they're going through and whatever they've gone through, and just enjoy the show. It doesn't always have to be funny. you know, it can be moving and it can be about some serious stuff.
Yeah, definitely. To help raise the mood a little.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. I mean, we got onto a very serious topic, and I do feel like it's important to discuss those things. Um, but I did also want to ask about another performance that you had recently. The Imperium was the host of a performance that actually ended up being live streamed, I believe, by a few different people on Twitch, including the official AetherCon Twitch channel. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, that was a really different experience for me. It was another instance where somebody came to me and they were wanting to put on this show and they needed a place to do it. And of course, I was happy to do that for them. And they did such an amazing job. It was so different than anything we'd had recently. This stage design, they had different scenes and they were all just so amazing. It really felt immersive. It really felt like you were there in the tavern. It felt like you were there with them in the train. They actually got out and interacted with the audience, and they had their basically their own pit orchestra to go with all the scenes. And so I was really happy to host that for them, and I didn't think it was going to be as big as it was. It was really shocking how many people came and saw it. But again, even if it wasn't going to be that big, I of course was going to give people a chance to perform whatever they wanted to perform. Just give them the opportunity to put on a show that there's not a lot of places where you can do that in the game.
Now, obviously, in the show notes, I'm going to have a link to the official card for the Empyreum of Arts. But for those that haven't had the opportunity to look at their website yet, the Empyreum of Arts is located on Dynamis, and there's also a link on the card to the Discord. And like Duo and I have discussed, Duo is very open, from what I've seen, to having all kinds of performances and helping figure out how to make performances work at the Imperium. So if you're listening to this and you have access to Dynamis and you're thinking about, I have this idea for a performance, it would definitely be worth your time, I feel, to check out the Empyreum of Arts Discord.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
And on that note, what kind of performances are you looking to have in the future? I mean, is there any type of performance that you would like to see that you haven't had at the Imperium yet, or a type of performance that maybe you would like to feature more of that kind of performance going forward?
Yeah, I wanted to have a murder mystery for a while, just something that would be really interactive with the audience and give them a chance to be part of the show instead of just watching. Um, let's see. I would love to do more big productions like the Great Train Robbery. That was the one we just talked about that was streamed on EtherCon. And well, I guess that would be it. That's really all I've thought about, was just having more big performances like that. Even if it's reenacting out a movie or a play that has existed in the past, I think it would still bring a lot of attention and a lot of joy to people to see those acted out on Final Fantasy XIV and see how people are actually able to act it out on Final Fantasy XIV.
Now, I do want to ask a few smaller questions about your venue. First off, I feel I have to ask, do you guys have a guest book?
Yeah, we have a guest book, and I check it after each performance.
And the other question I want to ask, would you say then that if there are any theater troupes listening to this, you're pretty open then to working with various theater groups in the community and would be down for them joining your Discord and possibly asking about collaborations?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know about the Firebird Theater, and I would love to do something with them. If even if it was just as simple as hosting the show and letting them come in and perform on my stage, that would be absolutely awesome. And but any theater group, it doesn't have to be a really well-known one, can just come and talk to me, and I'll try to set something up with them.
Is there any consideration for possibly an Empyreum of Arts Twitch or YouTube channel in the future to archive some of these performances?
Well, it would be a little bit hard to do that because a lot of my performers use SciTube. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, but it's cytube.com. And they do music that is in the real world. So I don't know if I would have copyright permissions to stream them along with those music.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely see how that would get pretty tricky. That's a fair point. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
No, I just because I was wondering because I know that Firebird they have a YouTube and I was curious though also I suppose like for instance at things like open mic nights I imagine there are some guests that might make them a little too anxious if they thought that their stuff was being streamed or going to be on YouTube as like a permanent archive.
Yeah, that's true. That
So,
might become a little uncomfortable.
yeah. But I suppose if you're having things like, for instance, the performance that was streamed on the Aethercon Twitch channel or like Firebird coming and performing at the Imperium, most of those larger performing troops are going to have their own recordings anyway.
Yeah, that's true. The one that was streamed on the Aethercon, it was streamed by multiple people. Like I know, I'm pretty sure DJ Yam streamed it, and I can't remember who the other person was, but um, they're actually going to show a recording of it with voiceovers on the on all the lines and stuff. I know that's later this month. I can't remember what date that was. Let me just see real quick. Oh, it's June 22nd. They're having a video on demand watch party.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Now, as we get near the end of the interview, I I don't know if you view it this way or even in terms of how the venue's going because I know that you very much view the Imperium of Arts not as a way to gain popularity or income in 14, but really just as a venue for people to express themselves. But personally, I think it would be fair to say that in the short time it's been open, I think that the Imperium is becoming pretty popular very quickly. And I'm curious if you would have any advice for people who want to create and run their own venue in the future, because I feel like you would be a pretty solid person to give some insight into what it's like to start a venue and try and get it, up and going.
Well, one thing I would say is you got to stick with it. You're gonna have some nights that are a bad turnout. Um, don't expect to make a lot of money with it. Um, and you need to have something that's unique to your venue. Uh, if you're going to do another club, why should people come to your club instead of this one that they've probably already been going to for a while before you put up your venue? So why should they stop going to that one and start coming to yours? I would say that that's the biggest part. It's just having something unique about your venue to draw people in.
That's very fair advice. Do you have anything else?
No. This is actually the third venue that I've tried doing, and I did not stick with the first two. The second one, the second one was Chocobo races that were streamed through Discord, and I just had a hard time keeping up with Chocobo racers that were interested in doing it. So it's not just about being unique, but you need to have like staff that's committed to it. Even if you're committed to it, if you need help, if it's the kind of venue that you can't do everything yourself, then you really need to make sure that the people that are doing it are committed and they're there because they want to enjoy the venue and not because they're there because they needed a job in the game to try to make some money.
So if I had to sum all of that up in two quick things, I guess the first one would be stick with it, obviously.
Yeah.
And the second would be have a solid vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Know where you're going and know what you want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I appreciate the time you've given me today. I feel like this interview has gone really well. We hit some pretty emotional notes back there.
Yeah, we did.
And it's been really cool just getting to know more about you and getting to discuss the Empyreum of Arts. I've been really blown away by not only what feels like a lot of altruism on your part when it comes to the community of just genuinely doing it for good reasons and wanting to give people room for self-expression. And I love that. But I also just really enjoy seeing the Imperium grow, both in terms of performances and groups you've been working with, but also in regards to like crowd sizes.
Yeah, I've been very excited about that too. And like I said, it's not always going to be a big turnout, but I understand that. And is I can't like succumb to my depression in that regard and think like, oh, nobody's interested anymore, or oh, my theater's over. I have to understand that there's just some nights are going to be a low turnout, and I need to just keep going with it because I do have some regulars, and if nothing, I'm going to do it for them.
You know, like I said, I feel the exact same way. There are some times where I'm putting out content and it does way better than I expect. There are times I put out content that I have really high expectations for and it just doesn't go well, but ultimately I have this core group of listeners that always have some comments to how the interview went, and I'm so appreciative of them because they are definitely a key reason that this podcast keeps going. So I really understand doing it for your core audience. Now, I feel like I've asked you quite a bit over the course of this interview. So I want to turn the tables and give you a chance. Do you have one or two questions for me?
I have one. It's based on another interview that you've done with somebody else with Scarletta, and I just want to know how you justify calling a hot dog a sandwich.
I'm going to answer that in a single sentence because The thing is, Scarletta and I have had enough conversations about this that I have responses down to a science at this point. So, all I'm going to say is after responding and making an entire YouTube short about how I would consider a giant piece of ravioli to be a sandwich, it would be a little weird after that if I then changed my criteria for a hot dog.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
If I am willing to be as flexible with my criteria as possible to consider that a giant hand-sized piece of ravioli would be a sandwich, then I think we can both agree that a hot dog is probably closer to a sandwich than a giant piece of ravioli would be.
God, I can't even imagine trying to eat a giant ravioli with your hands.
I want to. I want to imagine it. If someone Oh, it would be like eating a giant sloppy Joe. It would be a horrible mess. But at the same time, admitted if someone came to me and was like, "Would you like a large piece of ravioli?" I'd be like, "You bet. Delicious." Though, though I have given this some thought since that interview, I feel like if it was a giant piece of baked ravioli, that might make it a little less messier.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like for all of the weird things that people have talked about seeing at county fairs in terms of food, I feel like a giant piece of fried ravioli would actually be one of the less weird things, especially compared to a large fried stick of butter.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's my defense is, calling a hot dog a sandwich or being willing to eat a large piece of ravioli. There are weirder things out there. Eh.
Yeah, that's true. I,
That's where I'm at with that.
like deep frying a candy bar and things like that. Like some of the stuff people think of, like how did you think of that in your life?
I can answer that because I feel like there are sitcoms that have answered that. Um, you have a big boiling vat of oil and you fried something traditional, and then you're like, well, we're going to have to toss out this big boiling vat of oil. So while it's here, we might as well use it. And then you start looking at things around you and going, huh, what if?
What if?
It's a mix of curiosity and boredom, and that is how you lead to things like fried whole sticks of butter and fried candy bars.
That makes sense.
Living in the Midwest teaches you so many things.
Yeah.
All right.
We're an unusual munch.
We are, but we make it work.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Duo, I hope you have a fantastic day, and thanks for being willing to do this interview, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks again for having me, and I really appreciate it. Being able to have the time to talk about the theater.
It is a wonderful theater, and I really encourage everyone listening to this. If you're already a fan of the Imperium, then I sincerely hope this has helped you learn more about Duo and learn more about the Imperium. If you are listening to this and this is your first time hearing about the Imperium of Arts, then I hope this encourages you to go to their website, go to their Discord, and go ahead and attend their next event. I promise you won't be disappointed. And finally, if you're Duo's mother, I hope you enjoyed the interview.
Yeah, I'm sure she will.
Have to include everyone.
Especially, especially the part where I get choked up. I know she's gonna have something to say about that.
Well, once you hear back from her, please feel free to share her feedback with me. All right, everyone. Duo and I will catch you later. Have a wonderful day. I wasn't expecting that interview to get so emotional. Duo is a very kind hearted person, and we have very similar views when it comes to this community. Yet, we also have similar struggles. I wonder, are you someone who enjoys theater? Have you ever tried getting on stage for a performance? Even if you aren't or you haven't, I would still recommend dropping by the Empyreum of Arts sometime. Regardless of if you are on stage in front of the crowd or part of the audience watching the performance, the atmosphere Duo's theater creates is a very wonderful experience. Well, with my ability to make drinks being limited and tomorrow being my name day, I think I'll go ahead and close up shop early. May you have a wonderful rest of your month, and I will see you next time, dear friend, with a warm drink and wonderful guests. Take care.